All right, guys, Jason Cardamone here, and we are back for Icicle Light Team Build Strategy version 2.0. And, I realized it wasn't just but a couple days ago we were, the situation was there was some real non-ideal building happening throughout many areas within the teams. And so I was seeing this from a 30,000-foot view and realizing that something needed to be done. And we had hours of conversation. I have a really special guest that I'm going to invite here, that I have here with me. And I can't wait to introduce him. And, he and I and Mike, we've had countless hours of discussion. It's like we'll share a little more, I'm sure, somewhere tonight about the depths of this. And so version 1.0 was really born out of necessity, and I didn't get to discuss things, and it like we needed it in that moment, and boom, it flew out. And it actually did some really amazing things, because the next day, within about 24 hours, we started literally seeing spikes like this all throughout the team. So I was like, this is amazing. And then, there's benefits and drawbacks to every decision we ever make. And so we started to test the limits of the Icicle, and what it ultimately turned out is that it was really a it was the science, and the science was being executed near perfect. It was actually really inspiring. And I kind of forgot about the art side in 1.0, and that is going to be more of what we cover in 2.0 here. And so that's really what we're going to go over. And so, by the way, this assumes you've seen the Icicle Light Build Team Build Strategy 1.0, and that's like the foundation. So if you're just jumping into this video, you might be a little lost. You could probably, you'll get some concepts. I do recommend to go watch the first one, and I'll put a link down below the video here. So, so here's what I'd like to do. I have a really special guest tonight, and this gentleman I have gotten to know for a while, close to a year, but I really have got to know him over the past like 4 or 5 months or so. And we went through this course together, and it was amazing how much we got to know each other and how much we have in common. Even things like from our childhood, like, wow, I thought I was the only kid programming at like 6 and 7 years old kind of stuff. And so I would like to unveil the big piece of the magic behind what's happening here. And it's a movement in our industry. And a major part that we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing is, this gentleman I'm going to introduce you to. And his name is Jeremy James, and I cannot speak highly enough for him. He's a fellow comp plan geek with me, and we can talk the deepest level of just crazy stuff all hours of the night and have fun. And he has, his heart has always been in the right place, and it's amazing. You have a tech person that also understands people. That's super rare. And so I want to throw this, Jeremy, let me throw this over to you, and let him see the man behind the magic curtain and all the beautiful things coming down the road here.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. I really appreciate you having me on here, because we've spent a lot of time talking about this stuff, and it's been a lot of fun, and being behind the scenes and trying to figure out how the payments work and where the payments go and all that good stuff has been very interesting conversations. So thanks for inviting me on. Appreciate
Oh,
that.
man, I'm so pumped you're here, because I've dreamed, that first video, if I could have grabbed you, you would have already been on that with me. And I've been dying to share. It's not usually I am the comp plan guy. And it's so cool. This is the first, I mean this, the first time in 14 years, I have somebody that we can just go to the depths of it. And I love that. It's been so fun. I mean, guys, how the Icicle strategy partially came from it was about a week or so ago, and it was late into the night. And Jeremy and I are going back and forth with 1 minute, or I was doing 1 minute audios. He does normal minute audio, like normal audios. And just hours passed. It was 2, 3+ hours. And it was so fun. And we're all charged up in the middle of the night talking about a comp plan. And
Right.
so I do have a question, Jeremy. So this seems like the most complex comp plan I've seen. And would you agree with that, or what are your overall thoughts around this?
Whether it's the most complex.
Yeah, like what it seems there's a lot of pieces people don't understand, and that it does seem complex, even compared to like some of the deeper ones that I've evaluated.
Yeah, I think it's because most comp plans are based upon the people, right? Where the person is on your team, who sponsored them. And there's still an aspect of that in this program, but the way that the matrices is what they're called, although we talk about that's probably not the appropriate term for the comp plan. um, they're really payments instead of people, so it gets a little bit confusing sometimes when you're talking about the comp plan, because it's not like a normal, it's not a binary, it's not a unilevel, it's not, that structure kind of exists behind the scenes in the partner links. But yeah, the way that the circles get filled in can be confusing if you don't know exactly what's going to happen when a payment is due.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. That's really good. And I remember when I was still hiding behind the scenes and nobody knew I was even looking at this, I remember you saying to a group that the circles are payments, not people. And that when somebody joins you, you'll never lose sponsorship of them. And the people joining us are usually from somebody else gifting our spot. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, which is very unique, right? I mean, normally in a program, like you said in the last video, it's counterintuitive. You almost always think about it, even if there's a binary, you think of it in terms of a unilevel. How many people did I personally bring in? This concept of a team build and us placing people in somebody else's organization, basically giving them that payment, is very unique, and you don't see that very often. I think it's going to be one of the things that changes this entire industry potentially.
Yes, love it. It's awesome. So one of the here's I like to draw something out on the screen of what really well executed scientific icicle build does. And I want to share the story behind this, but I'll share with you. Let me see. Let me do a screen share again. So what I want to show you is, so I wanted to walk the whole thing out for you, but it's good. I type things, and what happens here is that as sixes, if this was a whole line of six sixes, and as they're joining, this is the progression of payments and levels and things. This is what happens. Now, I did this live 2 times, and I ended up with about what you see on the screen, which you can count. There's 6 placements here. And I did it twice across 2 different days. And I'm like, the math all like, this is exactly how it works. And it was
Until you
interesting.
go to the seventh level, right?
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and I saw the pattern. And it may have even been 5, because basically, here's a long story short. Here's what I didn't do is that I didn't add one more and one more. And what happens is that these little 7s right here, those represent a payment that was passed up and is waiting, but you need 2 7 payments to go 8. So this person can't go 8 7 because they only have 1 7. This person can't go 8 7 because they only have 1 7. It's kind of holding tank is right here. This person has 1 6. They're in a holding tank. They can't go 7 yet. So, and this person has 1 7, which is not enough to go 8. They would need 2 7s stored up to be able to do something like that. So what happens is when you perfectly scientifically march a line up in just one single line, you end up getting clogs, I guess, in the pipeline. I don't know. What, Jeremy, what's the best way to describe that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're normally looking at that progression, uh, you're talking about somebody who's buying in at the 6-6 level. So when that's the case, you already own level 6 on both the X3 and the X4. So what happens is, because you're using one of those payments to that you collect on the X3 to make your X4 catch up to the same level, half of that money is now already used, so it can't continue up the line. So yeah, that's at the point where you have the seventh person. That's where, the icicle method works. You definitely want to focus on that one leg, right, and keep growing that one leg deep. But there's going to be a point where it doesn't just automatically roll up to 12. So that's what we're talking about here.
And so basically the lines end up getting clogged at some point, right?
Yeah, you just can't progress past a certain point until you have a second leg. So, yep.
So so what this is all about is, so a scientific icicle build would just exactly, you'll end up seeing patterns like this. And it's not just 6 and 7. you know the line may have pushed all the way to 8, and so you may see 8s and 9s and things like that. And so what we wanted to share tonight is more about, well, what do we do, what's the art side of the icicle build. And part of it, it's actually right here.
And actually, before you move to that,
Yeah,
one thing
yeah,
I
yeah.
would like to say is, what you stated in 1.0 is accurate. Everybody in that line will eventually be able to level up to 12s, right? And that's what we talk about, so you can focus on that one line, but they won't be able to do that just with everybody coming at the same level. There has to be something that causes the further level, either somebody below that buying in at a higher level and some people getting past, or when the cycling occurs at some point, there's going to be some people down below who do are, as leaders, build their second level, like you talked about in the icicle build, where every once in a while you'll have the offshoots. Those offshoots will end up causing some of that to roll up, and eventually everybody in that line does have the ability to roll up. But like you said, if it's just a perfect progression of one line all the way down, then yeah, it's going to get stuck at the point where you're 6 deep.
Awesome. And one of the ways I've started to see this, and I want to share this, is that if you have, right before I did what I just did, if we have this, imagine this is like a garden hose of an exact, a fixed length. And then if we do what I had just done here, and then imagine that, Jeremy, is there a faster way besides right clicking and add below?
Not really.
Okay, good. I was just making sure because I've done like hundreds of these boxes and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going crazy. So here's what I want everybody to think about is that if you're leader E here or builder E, and you have one garden hose feeding in, if you create your second lane, you now have twice as much. And so what happens is you start to become, a lot of pressure builds up here. And now you don't get stuck at 7-7 here. You're able to progress past that. Now, if they all stayed like that, your payments would jump up to the nearest qualified person once you start advancing. But I just wanted to introduce the concept of, if you imagine that the width of these boxes is like a garden hose coming down, and you'll notice down here, it's a lot wider, like twice as wide. So you're you're jamming more stuff. It's like a highway. Instead of a 2-lane highway, we now have a 4-lane highway. You can fit more cars. And you can fit more payments. You can stuff more payments into this thing. And so it breaks the bottleneck that's happening down below. Is that fair to say, Jeremy?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So one big solution that helps you, not it helps you get up faster is to create your second lane. And one of the things that we will talk about that, well, we're going to discuss is, and we're going to kind of play back and forth. When do you build a second lane? And how do you, this was a great question. I asked Jeremy earlier, and I've been, it's funny, he doesn't know this, but I've been saying for like over a week now, I want Jeremy to explain, how do you describe when a leg is in momentum? Because when I look at charts, it can be 30, 50, 80 people. I know exactly where the problems are, and I just instantly, but I can't describe it in words. It's like the art part. But I knew Jeremy would have the words. And so what I asked you early, Jeremy, how do you know if a lane is in momentum that I could even go build these, the second ones? How, like if I'm sitting here, how do I know I can go do these ones on the side?
Well, in this case, you're talking about person E deciding to do it, not you as the leader above this whole chart. So
Yep.
that really what you're looking at from understanding momentum is, do you have leaders that are creating their second legs already, and they're adding people into those second legs. And at the point where you have a couple of those happening, everybody is looking at staying ahead in the comp plan from not missing payments. You want to stay ahead as well. So everybody that has the ability to bring people into two lanes, and we originally talk about fast, medium, and slow lanes, right? So you know you're potentially going to have three different lanes or a couple of lanes, because you don't want to always be placing somebody who's coming in at a higher level under somebody who's at a lower level. So if you now start medium or a slow lane on the side of it, they're going to eventually also grow up to the higher levels. So I don't always just look at it as momentum. I mean, if you get down, 10 or 11 levels deep, and you can now put a leader at the bottom of that lane, they're going to be able to help continue that momentum and keep it growing. And it's at the point where you notice that your other leg is falling behind. We call it leg. It's your partner, your next person your next lane that you're helping to build. At the point where it's falling behind, that's where you'll focus your attention until it catches up. And you'll be able to look at the chart and see, okay, if I was to put another person in that line of 3-3, 3-3, 4-4, if I put another person in that line and help that get some momentum, now position B is going to be able to grow up to an 8, which then helps me in position A. So you just kind of look at which side. It's not a binary, it's not a unary where you're taking everybody front line either. But you're kind of trying to balance a little bit on each side, right?
Yeah. So Jeremy, pretend, and guys, I'm just playing with the numbers now. If you see this chart, you at the top, and you see those two lanes, what talk them through that scenario, that a 9-8 and then a 6-6 on the other lane. And those are the highest. Assume they're the high. Assume the lanes are exactly like they are right now.
Okay. So one of the things you want to look at is who placed those people into that team. So if it's person B who placed the 3s and the 4 in their second position, then you kind of want to reward that behavior, so to speak. You want to help them out and help get some more momentum under them. So it's not a bad idea to every once in a while focus on your stronger side and still continue to help them out. And you might place somebody under that, or you could help place even further down in their leg and keep that one main icicle growing. But at the point where you notice, okay, I've got 1-6-6, they need help too. You want to help that side grow until it catches up to a 9-8, so that this is a capitalistic program, right? It's not all all about everybody just being given um, positions that, they want to, you want people that are going to contribute. Well, that first person that you placed on your second partner position, they need help. You want to get them excited, you want to help them get into momentum. So by placing somebody on that position, they're getting half of the money they came in at back, and then another person under that helps them grow, and that's how you level up your second position, right? So it's kind of a, you'll probably have two, three at the most lanes growing at a time, but focusing on just a couple of them, and then you'll balance between the two where it's, where you see it slowing down, or if it needs some extra um, help with somebody at the bottom of one of the lines. Is that kind of how you think about it as well?
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I picture here, just so everybody, so you're super clear, is that, the lines that Jeremy's referring to is right here, the six and the fives, and then the 9-8 and everything below it. The I see this as two lines only. I don't see one, two, three, four. This is all just a 9-8 line. That's it. Everything below here, and the numbers probably don't quite work out, but pretend like all of this adds up to a 9-8 right here. That's the highest person on this side. And pretend like everything in this line adds up to 6-6. This is quite a bit from a 9-8, quite a bit, like 2, 4.5 times or something like that. And so I always picture things as just, you see this little line going from you and then a line there. That's it. That's two lines. And if somebody, now I didn't talk about this in the Icicle video at all, version 1.0, is that there are scenarios in a day, and maybe we'll touch on this, that we open a third lane. And, it's, we originally talked about that, let's think about that more when we get to 12-12. And let's use two lanes to drive up to go to 12-12. And so we can talk about that more, but this would be three lanes, 1, 2, 3. Now, you are responsible that all three of these lanes, not this and this and this, but just this lane, keep it in momentum, and this lane and this lane. So just like Jeremy was saying, this third lane here, they are like, that's all on you. You started that. It's all on you. You probably have people above you. They're going to be driving down through this main one somewhere, and maybe here, it depends. So the way I look at this, and Jeremy, I would love your thoughts on this too, is that I think the people above you, drive this line, and then your job is to drive your second line. And if you want to open a third, we have people on the team that can very, very easily support 5+ lanes at a time. But they're also, these are people that have been in this industry for many decades, and they know they just, you bring a person in and the line goes to 1,000 people in a month. So that's not average, and but I do want to cover things, because version 1.0 was not for a leader. It was to teach some fundamentals. And I wasn't even thinking of any leaders. But then later that night, or I don't know, the night before, I was on with a whole bunch of leaders, and I realized there were things they were going to need, not just marching in a straight line. When someone to run at 1,000,000 miles an hour, someone to run at 10,000, and everything, they're all in different amounts of momentum. So these are, leaders can open new lanes or lines and support them all. So a new Icicle line, imagine that, all the way down, and this one. So, and then even a third one and beyond. And there's repercussions to third ones. And, if you could support it, go for it. Most people cannot. I know I've heard Mike say this, that I'm Jeremy, correct me if this is off, that I think he started with 3 lanes and he wishes he would have started with 2. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Yeah, for sure.
And I understand why, and it's because you have to get one in momentum first. But once you know, it's like Jeremy said, if it's going without you, like if you could go away for a day or even a week and it just like you come back and this is like an 11-11, it's probably in momentum because they don't need you anymore. And they're not saying, hey, Jeremy, are you still gonna help me? Or hey, you. And they're just off running. They're not even thinking about what you're gonna help them with. That's when Elaine's in momentum. And then you get to, do this rinse and repeat over on the side.
Yeah,
Um,
and I look at it as, we talked about, is it 50% of your
oh yeah.
door placements on one side or on the other, or is it 75-25, or, how does that work? From the way I view it is you kind of 100% focus on one side if it's unbalanced, but every once in a while you're still going to help on the other side. So for example, you've got the 9-8 has a long line of sevens and some sixes. And so the question is at position E where there was a split, right? Is that a leader? Is that somebody who can run on their own or not? And maybe you're helping the 6-6 on their second half, because like you said, that 9-8 leg, that is that icicle, right? You're not necessarily going to place all the way to the bottom of that. I mean, we're given a placement, we want some of that money to come back up to us as well, right? Just giving everything away, but you're going to help where it makes the most sense. So if that 3-3 is really, they're the ones that brought in the 3-3 and the 4-4 under them, and they're creating some momentum in that line already, you may decide that your next placement it might be to go in and help that area of that 9-8 to help them get up to 10, which ultimately helps you get to 11, right? So that's the art of it, right? So the science says drive deep in one leg, but that doesn't mean you place a 3 and then an 8 and then a 6 and then a 4 and you just drive in one single line down, right? Because it starts getting a little bit crazy. You still got to kind of have, each person has to view from their position their two icicle lines. Don't be afraid to start that second line. You're going to be able to help them. And like I said, your sponsor may then reward that momentum by adding somebody into that line when they focus back on your group, because they want to help you build to the next level as well. And then you talked about, when is it a good time to start a third leg? It's not always just about what you can support, right? So in your diagram, you've got 2 3-3s and then a 4 and then a 5. If you added another 4-4 under the 3-3, so yeah, right there.
Right here.
So say that's a person who got passed up, and they had a 4-4 added to their team. Somebody who ranked up to a 4-4, and they missed a few payments because they weren't ready for it, right? So because they're not going to be collecting as quickly, that 3-3, if they're a builder and not somebody who's just waiting for roll-ups and whatnot, they might want to start a third lane at that point just to catch up to the momentum in their first two legs. So that's a scenario where you might start a third leg. But again, you've got to be ready to support that third leg, just like you said.
And Jeremy, that third leg, is that third leg from 9-8 perspective or up over here at the top?
I'm talking about the 3-3 who's been passed on both of their legs
Right
somehow.
here.
If they had people that rolled up past them, and
Yep.
now they've missed the payments and they didn't roll up along with them, they might start a third leg in order to catch up to the two legs that are already ahead of them.
Oh, perfect.
Just as an example.
Yeah.
But
So
most of the time, you're not going to want to start a third leg, right? Unless you are a good marketer, a good leader, you can bring in enough people to get some momentum in all three.
you're talking about 3 like right here.
Right.
Got it.
And now
So
that 3 can rank up and they can push the person above them. And now 9-8 is going to help with that because he's unbalanced, right? So
Yeah.
he's going to be helping with that momentum as well, because he needs two legs that are growing somewhat in line. So
There's actually, let's look at right here. So pretend like this 3-3 fell behind that. talk to them about you're interested in catching this 3-3 back up. And hold on, let me get it like this. So let's say the 4-4 has passed the 3-3 here, and it's in your interest because this is super leader extraordinary, or it's Uncle Bob, or it's someone you want to help them catch back up to the line here. And the and it's a strategy of putting someone below them, starting their second lane, right?
yeah. And
Like
that's
this.
what, if you get passed up at all, that's what you really want to do, is get your second leg going.
Yep.
And it's okay to be passed up. I think we need to say that people should be okay with that. We talk about it once in a while, but it, you're not really missing a payment. You didn't get a payment on a level that you couldn't afford to begin with, right? So if you didn't buy that level, you shouldn't expect to get paid at that level. So the system shows it as a missed payment, but you're not missing anything. You still have the ability to collect on all the levels that you've made it to so far. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of point that out too. If you want to catch up, if you want to get ahead of your leg, though, you do exactly what you're saying, Jason, is start your second leg, and now you can catch up and you can get ahead.
So yeah, and that's really good. And I'm glad you brought that up. Part of when we have the big line like this, and it starts getting clogged up basically at the top, there's different ways to get it, start lanes and everything. But what if some big leader comes down here and they're ready to start cranking, or even if, I mean, so let's say this is you right here, that, or let's say it's up here. So you're kind of like, you don't have a second lane yet. So if a 10-10 comes in down here in your team, this is still your team. And even though some things, the back office might show missed payment, I think there's been some of our culture and language, and none of it there's like a vibe out there that I can't ever miss a payment, and I'm bad if I miss it, or there's pressure on me. So I want to share this, that you know I I don't ever want anybody feeling, and this is, Jeremy and I have talked about this, and I know Mike will agree with us. And if he doesn't, we'll edit the video. I know he does. So we don't want people feeling pressure that just because this person, pretend they have, no, let's take this person here. I'll just make it legit. So 7-7 below a 7-7, like this pattern that you see right here, this always means enough was generated for this person to go 8-8. Now that's going to put this person may feel pressure, like, well, I don't have the funds to go 8-8. And so that's okay. I think there's, I've had people feeling guilty that they're holding up the line. And I've also had other people that are, oh, well, they want to go 8-8. So I better go pull out of my bank, even though I'm not very comfortable with that. So I think, Jeremy and I talked about this a little bit, that what if every time we go to push the button, we really look at it and say, am I okay with doing this? And when I do this, I'm agreeing to this smart contract, and I will never see this again, ever. Act like you're blind. You don't know where it goes. Even if you know how to track the payments, you are agreeing to a smart contract and it's gone forever. So if you're not comfortable at a given level, then you can let this person go 8-8, and you can catch back up. You can start building a second lane. And so I just wanted to bring that up because and some people just we're going 12-12 no matter what. Get out, like, can you please hurry up there? I'm waiting for your next payment. And I don't know how long I can wait because they're about to pass me down here. And I'm like building 2 lanes. I'm ready to go right now. And I'm not going to be passed. Are we going to go or what? And I I think it's a conversation of like we don't know the time frames. Jeremy, let's talk about that. What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I mean, my opinion is exactly the same as yours. You know, you can give some warning and let the people above you know, hey, I'm ready to go. Do you have the funds? Are you able to go before I do? Right. And we talked about, I don't know if it's 24 hours or what, you know, what's the appropriate amount of time. I think you just try to get an answer from your two upline to say, you know, are you above that position or not yet? You know, and you give them some warning. But those upline who are saying, you know, I don't have the funds yet, you know, maybe they'll come back and say, you know, but I'm sponsoring someone tomorrow. I know I'll have the funds tomorrow. Can you just wait for that? Then it might be acceptable to say, you know, could you just hold off just for one day if you know that's coming. I don't think you should come out of pocket. And if it's a level that you've never planned on going to because you know, you've never made that kind of money in your life and you're just like, I don't think I can push the button on that high of an amount,
Yeah.
then don't, you know, and just be okay and tell the person below you, I can't level up, but I'm not going to hold you back. Go ahead, you know. And now you've got that person who has, you know, they're still on your team. You're still going to collect at whatever level you purchased up to, you know. So, well, -1 in certain scenarios, but yeah, I mean, you should not feel pressured to come out of pocket. You should not feel pressured to even push that button if you really don't want to. Now, of course, we want everybody to level up to 12, right? I mean, we want everybody to experience that kind of income and dream about what's possible, but it has to be your decision, and you have to be willing to, if for some reason this whole thing, you know, blew up tomorrow, you'd be okay with not having that money, you know. But know that by starting your second lane, even after the fact, even after somebody's passed you up, you can catch up. And then what happens is when they cycle later, you will catch that payment because you are permanently there. They're your partner, that you're their sponsor no matter what in the system. Even if you miss a payment once, you can always, now you can feel comfortable later on to say, okay, I know there are people that are at a higher level on my team below me. So now I'm comfortable with pushing that button. I've paid a couple of bills. I've got some money out, whatever the case may be, you know. Now you push the button and you go up to that level 9 or that level 10 and you say, I know I already have a 10 under me who's going to eventually cycle. So you can feel more comfortable with that, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, and if you want to stay ahead, you know, start building that second lane.
It so Jeremy, I want to give a little scenario here because I've I've been asked this question a lot and I've answered it, but I want everybody to hear your answer. Is that so let's say D7 here, well so they have 1-7, they don't have enough to go 8-7. And this person is they have enough to go 8-8 right now. So they're waiting, do you want to go? Do you want to go? And they don't need to check here because they're already 9-8. So if this person were to go 8-8, it's going to stop at the next 8, which is right here, unless one of them are going to upgrade. And there's many options to do that, but they don't have their second leg built. I want to give another scenario, and then I want to ask you that question because this almost bit me in the butt. Is that I'll even give you the exact scenario. It was exactly the scenario is this. So I had 3 friends in a row like this, and they were all at level 5. And a big leader was placed right here. And we we didn't know. We think they were going to go level 6, but we weren't quite sure. And we didn't even know when they were going to pull the trigger. but we knew they were going to come in at, we just didn't know the timing, I believe. This was like first couple days. It was an interesting situation because what we did was that they they had 6-6 ready to go, but we asked them to stop at 5-5 so that we could get caught up above. And I don't remember the scenario, but I don't know if they were stair stepping up or what, but it basically turned out we had 3-5-5s and the leaders coming in, and it was actually placed down there. So we didn't have communication. They were just coming in. They're coming in hot 6-6. So now, and these people they came in that morning, they went to 5-5, but they stopped. They wanted to go 6-6 because these people wanted to get more funds in, which they were doing. So they go golfing for the whole day. So hours go by, right? All of a sudden it's time for the leader to come in. Again, this is being placed down below them, not by any of our control, by someone up above. And so the leader comes in, and I'm told that they're coming in, and I asked them to not go 6-6 because we were waiting so nobody skipped, but there's a 6-6 coming in behind them. And guess whose fault it is? So it's really not. It was just a communication and teamwork thing. There was no fault and nobody missed anything. But I will say there was some scrambling and possibly 100-mile-per-hour driving to get home to pull the trigger on 6-6 once we had this scenario lined up while they were golfing. So they got home, pulled the trigger in time, and it all like it was literally within minutes of timing. And we didn't have any communication because the leaders just placed there. Like there was no connection. It was so I share that because this kind of stuff is going to come up and you're going to make decisions. And imagine they probably wouldn't have been very happy that I asked them to wait for these people and they come home and they got skipped. Or they got I think that's the word we're using. So because it would have looked like this. Now we were lucky they got home in time, they made the payment. So that was a real scenario, and that was like my first like 48 hours like in or something. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on that? So just so you know, the moral of the story, I mean the ending, it did work out like this. Sixes were passed around, they could level up and all that stuff. So in that scenario, Jeremy, what's your take on what I just shared? Besides it was funny and stressful.
Yeah, I mean, it'll happen, right? Like you said, you don't always know when an upline person is going to place somebody into that position. You may find out after the fact, and you hope that everybody's kind of watching and paying attention. But I mean, if they do miss the payments, they miss the payments. We're that first level we call missed. All the rest are skips because they don't even realize that they missed a payment the way the system works. So that 5-5 would have saw a missed 6 payment, and if the next person above was still a 5-5, it would have gone up to whoever was able to catch the 6. So it'll show with a little gift icon for the person up above who catches it. So only the first person knows that they even missed the payment in that case. The rest of them are skips terminology wise. But yeah, we've had that scenario multiple times. And all I would say, all I would ask is that if you're one of those 5-5s who misses or gets skipped, just realize that you have a person added to your team that you didn't have to personally bring in. So you still collected on the first 5 levels. You still made money in that scenario, and you didn't lose anything because you hadn't bought that level to begin with. So even though the system shows that as a missed payment in that scenario, you had to have purchased 6 to collect the 6 and break even. So it shows as a missed payment, but you really didn't miss anything because you didn't spend for that smart contract prior to collecting on it. Right.
Awesome.
So it's
Yeah,
frustrating, but yeah, it's nothing to be upset about. You should be happy that you have somebody added to your team, right?
totally. Totally. so and so that actually leads right into the next. I was going to do it over here. Let's just do it where we're already at. It works perfect. So let's pretend like that this is the scenario right here, and that a 6-6 did come in, and we have a miss, a skip, and the sixes ended here, and this one basically passes above somewhere. And so what my question, Jeremy, and I've been asked this a million times too, and so I want to hear your version of this, is that and let me draw it out just a couple more. We're just going to draw some 6-6s down here. So if this is the scenario, just pretend like that's the scenario. So, and let's say this line cranks, 20, 50, 100 people deep. I've had people ask, am I just stuck here forever? And what's your answer? I know the people I work with, they've heard my answer, but I want everybody to hear yours, because it'll be really concise and really well explained. So this person's point of view, are they going to be passed forever now that they fell behind?
Are you talking about somebody who is a builder or potentially is not?
Let's first start with let's start with builder first.
So
We're
a
going to
builder,
do both.
yeah, the builder's the easiest one because they can start their second lane and they can get caught up by building that second lane, right? So they can start collecting the payments and catch up at some point in time because they have their second partner growing. So it's really easy in the case of a builder because they can get to the position where they catch up quicker. Now, if you look at the scenario of, let's say, that the top 6-6 brought in their mother and their brother or their kid or whatever, and they're not builders, right?
Yep.
Now they had somebody placed on their team who is, and we start growing under that position.
Yep.
At some point in time, that group, and who knows whether it's going to be a month or even a year, whatever. I mean, at some point in time, you're going to have 2 or 3 growing under one of the leaders down there, and that starts the cycling. And as the cycling comes back up, they can continue catching additional payments at their level. So eventually, as long as there's growth under them, they will eventually be able to get to 12-12 if they chose to. It'll just take longer.
And so let and so I'm gonna try to demonstrate or draw on the screen this stuff, and tell me if I'm summarizing or restating what you said, is that these people who fell behind the rest of the sixes, and let's say these sixes just kept going on for, they're building and things. What I think I heard you say is that as soon as a second lane is opened up, and the more that happens, especially if it starts to happen multiple people like this, 1, 2, 3, so to say, these kind of scenarios down below cause a lot more cycles, and the cycles end up getting here, and these people catch level 5 payments and can eventually start upgrading as well.
Correct.
Perfect. So, because I've been asked that a lot, I think some people fall behind the line a little bit, and then they feel like they're just stuck there forever. So
Get discouraged.
yeah, thank you. And so thank you for answering that, Jeremy, because I think it's really important that we all understand that. Now, let me ask this, Jeremy. So let's say, not, instead of 6-6s, let's say it's something like, let's say it's 5-5s, sandwiched by 8-8s on, both sides. So if that was the case, would it be any different for them? They would still grow at the same speed. They would still get up there the same, I think. Is that correct? It doesn't matter what these levels are. They're still going to get there at the same, based on the same scenario below.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're sandwiched by sixes, eights, 12s, whatever. It'll be the exact same amount of time
Yep.
theoretically for them to catch payments on the levels they've purchased at and be able to level up.
And I think, what my brain goes to is that what I think it is that if fives are looking at like sixes instead of eights, I think we get into like this comparison zone, just human nature. And if it's like this, it just starts to like, oh, it's just so hopeless. But it doesn't matter what they are. You can still get there just as fast based on what's happening down here. If you're
Yeah,
not doing anything, right? We're not even talking about just go open your mouth to a soul and you may have magic like that.
yeah, that's the quickest way, to catch more and catch up. But we a lot of people talk about these magic payments on the X4 and cross line payments, and I can explain every single one of the scenarios, but ultimately that will happen too. There will be times where one of those, the X4s on that level 10 guy, will get filled up, and it'll pass the payment up, or he'll cycle, it'll pass the payment up to that 5-5 at one of his positions he has open, 1 through 5. So he could catch some 4 payments, he could catch some 3 payments. If there's activity down below that 10 where you have some 3s getting passed by 4s and 5s, well, the 4s get passed up, and that causes cycling as well. You don't have to wait until somebody fills up their entire organization, into this huge organization before the cycling can happen naturally. So
And
don't
would you
despair. You will catch up, it just
good.
takes time.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I think that's really important that I've had that a lot. I've had that question a ton. And I think it's because once you do miss a payment, it is harder to catch up because you just missed what you needed to start funding the next level. So thank you. That's super important to understand that.
Yeah. I mean, of
Um,
course, as much as we would like people to level up together, you don't want to hold back somebody who's on your team. You got to let them go if they're ready to go, and you just don't have yours there yet, because you will catch up, especially if you're somebody who can start a second lane.
yep. What other scenarios, what else can we cover here you think is, some of the art side or the pivot side, different situations?
Well, I mean, we talked about the driving deep and how just having a single leg, once you get to the 7th position, it doesn't help each person pop. So, I mean, that's where some of the art comes in. Is at what point, like you said, do you start your second lane? And I think the art comes in there in terms of, um, who can I, if I'm looking at a chart like this, and now at this point we've got a 9-8 and we've got a 10-10 under you, right?
Yep.
So that 9-8, what can I do to best help that person be able to level up to 10? So you just kind of have to look at it on where, not just where is the momentum, but where is the best place to position your next placement.
And so what guidance do you have for people? And I can set up a scenario here. My eyes are going like cross-eyed here, but um where, because I know places to look. What would you guide people what to look for besides us just doing case by case? Come ask us, come to the leadership. And even another piece of advice, just go mess around and play and have fun. That's what Mike told me like the whole first week. I had all these questions. I was drilling him all this stuff, and Jeremy. Actually, no, not Jeremy yet. He didn't know I'm here either. So it and but I remember several of the answers, not all of them, but some of the answers were like, I don't know, just go play with it. And he gave an example of where he had a big lines of threes and fours, and he popped an 8-8 at the very bottom just to see what would happen. And it created some like it it's how the icicle thing was kind of born. It came out of, we saw people having too many, like, this is, I call this a straggler. They don't have anybody yet. A straggler, 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 straggler. And so I was seeing those all over the organization. So that's where the origin, the, 1.0 necessity for that base strategy came from, which was do this. But it's really important we understand, what if a builder didn't naturally emerge across 5, 6, 7 people? Do we keep going deep? Do we wait for it? Do we force it? I there are many answers. Jeremy, what's your take on that? It's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and when we first started, I mean, granted, we're only a few weeks into this, right? So a lot of this is based upon the 400 or 500 people that have started in the organization at this point. But at the point where we started doing the 2x2, what happened, we started calling that the Hydra method. It's like the mythological Hydra beast. You cut off one head, you get two more, right? So now you have more people to help and more people. It gets wide really fast. So that's how we started. So all of a sudden, you've got a whole bunch of people that are waiting for help, because until they get their first, maybe second person, their belief level isn't there. They're still wondering, did I get into this thing and I shouldn't have, what the heck's going on? And there are still people in that position right now, right? They haven't had a placement yet, right? So they're concerned and they're worried, and maybe they're not sharing it with everybody. So it gets really wide really fast, and that was part of the necessity to talk about the spikes or the icicles, and start driving deep, so you only have one place that you need to focus at a time. But at the same time, when you have that depth underneath one line, as we figured out, all those lines of 6 6s, right, from the bottom of that area you just highlighted. So the person two up can go to 7, but the people above them will already have gone to 7 in this scenario, right?
Right.
So it will roll up to the point where if everybody's coming in at 6 6, it'll get stuck as 7 7s at the top. That you have to have a second lane in order to get out of the 7 7. So that's where that level that you're at now can finally advance past 7 7 at that point. But you need a little chaos, right? You need a little bit of chaos here and there, so it can't be perfect. And what Mike did by placing an 8 8 under a long line of people, for one, it's good for the people who are already at the higher level. It wouldn't have mattered if they placed them directly to them or were kind and placed them under that line, right? So either way, the person who is placing that high level person down under that line, it's helping them because they've now got this great placement on their team. But if he decided to just put it directly to the 9 8 or in the line, the fast line, well, now there's some excitement created there, but it helps the 9 8 who placed that 8 8, because they're getting some of that money even though they've placed it down in the line. And now all of those people in that line can level up once, right? They're getting some of that coming up still. And now they know that when they start um, bringing in additional people themselves, that they've got somebody on their team who's a higher level, and they can then catch those payments once they get caught up in the levels. So we've noticed that it helps people start having on their notifier, right? It starts showing you got a payment of such and such, or the person directly above them, that 3 3, got a notification of, you missed a level 8 payment. Well, now they can go to their buddies and they can show them, oh, I just got an awesome payment of a few $100. Had I done this a little bit sooner, I would have caught a payment of $1,000 or whatever. And they'll be like, well, what do you mean you missed out on $1,000? How do I get part of that? And it's that helps. It gives a little bit of motivation, and that chaos. It would have been the same for that 9-8 to have them placed directly to them because they get all those pass up payments. But at the same time, you're helping all of the people in that line still. And it's very motivating, and they have a good story to tell people. So don't be afraid to, you know, bring in an additional line or to, cause that little bit of chaos, right? So we have these different methodologies. We started with total 2x2, which is awesome because everybody levels up. But then if you don't have people contributing, it gets harder to support at the lowest level, right? When you have a complete straight line, a complete icicle, then it gets to the point where there is a pause, there is a break, there's somebody who can't advance without having a second, or some cycling happens down below. So there has to be some sort of a hybrid. There has to be some sort of a mix. And that's where the art comes in, where if you now have this case of the 3-3 line that, placed that 8-8 under, right? That is the art. That is the, let's do something to reward that, all of those people coming in and taking a chance on this system. They now see, wow, this is pretty cool. There's something amazing going on. And if I can keep leveling up, and if I share this with everybody, then, I'll be able to catch those payments later on, right? So the idea, we started calling everybody trying to level up in one line, kind of the socialism system. If you're absolutely waiting to level up, until the person above you levels up, that can cause some stress and some strain on the people that are waiting to level up, especially if they've been waiting, like you said, and now an 8-8 gets put into that line by the you in this particular picture. It's, goes down and wants to create that chaos and throw an 8-8 in the mix, right? So if you have the ability to level up, obviously you wait a little while, let the person above you have a chance to level up, but you need to do what you need to do. You level up, you bring in your second person, and you grow.
Yeah, this is really good. I can't think of any more situations or strategies that we've seen come up so far. And I, here's something I'd like to point out is that in this, which is 2x2, it means this brought in two, this brought in two. So each person gets two. And it's typically being fueled by person at the top. And the way I look at that is that this is 8 lanes to fulfill, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across the bottom. Each one of these is a person that hasn't seen any action yet, and they're doubting we're really doing a team build. And so it doesn't sustain if you only run, you run a 2 down 10 levels, it's 1,024 heads to feed. 1,024. And so if you brought in one person a day in like about 3 years, they would all finally get one. Like nothing's going to happen. So, and then the opposite. So I always love things to extremes. And it gets a lot different than this. You could just personally sponsor all these right to yourself. That's like the way, like, just take all the money yourself. You're doing all the work, and there's no team build. You just say, you do work too, just like I did work. And then the opposite is like, let's just do all the work, and I'll put like 1,000 people in a straight line and everything gets clogged in the garden hose. So there's, we wanted to cover different strategies of how to keep people, feeding down, but how feeding is like, I don't know if that sounds be like like we're off to the lines. It's so funny. There's this group of leaders, and we have a placement, and we're like, hey, we have a 4-4, and I'm like ready to throw it in the group, and I just picture all these lions, like they're all like gonna my team. And so this is it, we want to be able to help each person that hasn't been helped yet. So all you have to do is look for who doesn't have any help yet. They have help from them. They have help from them. They're hanging and they're waiting. And so you want to have a minimum number of these based on how fast you're bringing people in, but also how fast you're getting help from above. Because if you right here, it's a 9-8 and a 10-10. If this is you, you're probably going to be more biased towards putting most of your focus over here somewhere. And so, and I encourage you. I love that Jeremy brought this up, days ago. I've been using it ever since. Like, you cut off one head and you create two more. If we wanted to create a new lane over here, like, well, where do I put a 1 and 2? There's no slow lane. And so then we go like this. A 1 came in, let's say that. And then it's like, well, now I have a 2 and there's no 2 lane. So let me just create another Hydra head. So now, sweet, I have my 1 and 2 lane, and now I have 2 more families to feed. So it's really, I love the idea of focus fire on a line, then pop back over. And let me add in this little bonus 2.0 tip, because it was left out of the first one. We found this to be crazy successful. And I think it's a really important thing, is that you get with a group of people up here that are all interested in, let's say, for example, we want this lane to grow down here. And so let's say it's 9-8 wants that. And let's say that's the spot they wanted at. And you're not clickable. So that's pretty cool. And then there's 2 more. So let's say there's like a group of 3 to 5 of you up above here. You all agree to, you want growth right here. It's in everybody's best interest. Everybody agrees, or the ones that do agree, they want to build here. And so let's say you're bringing in a person a day. I'll just keep it simple. So what you can do is say, hey, today, Thursday, is going to be, too bad they don't have names, like it's Joe Day. So all of you are going to go put all of your placements below Joe. And so imagine you're Joe and you've been sitting there, whether it's an hour. By the way, we've done placements every 10 to 20 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. So an hour later, 5 people are below somebody. Now, it takes a lot of communication and teamwork and coordination. And so there are roles for people there, if you have that skill set. And so just imagine if you were Joe and you've been sitting there for like a week. I just had a good friend in here, and I put him under a leader, and they were really still getting going in the business, and they're focused on their Icicle line. So my friend was sitting there off to the leader side for, I don't know, maybe a week or 5 days or some, I don't know. But I was super aware of this. And I was starting to wonder, like, well, maybe I need to go help, but actually that's not that. It would be like me putting over here where it's a 10-10, but I need my help over here. But my friend's stranded right there. That's exactly the situation. And it was because I guessed that the leader was going to grow. Now, I did guess right, because now the leader just like woke up in the past 48 hours and they're putting in 2 to 4 people every day. But it took like a week. And I felt like I let my friend down, because I was like, this is like an amazing spot. You're right below a leader. And then nothing happened for a week. And so whether that did happen or not, whether the leader ever engaged or not, I feel responsible for every person I place. So this focus fire thing is awesome, because you're placing all these people and they're all getting fast sign up, like immediately. I remember the first few days, people were like, wow, in 48 hours I did, whatever they got back. And they like just got in, and they're in profit, or they got their money back or whatever. And so I love placing in lines like this myself, because I already see the line growing. I'm pretty sure one of these 8 or so people, or one of them, is going to, if I put my friend down here, I'm almost certain someone's going to place below, versus if we place any of these 8 lanes, we have no idea what's going to happen on there. Or if I place randomly right here or here. So I just wanted to bring that up because I like to, the people I'm putting in, I want them to have action. So this actually leans towards kind of icicle-ish, right? Like driving in a line, but at the same time, see, I have this other big side. I have kind of 2 icicles in this scenario. This is a 10 by 10 icicle, even though it goes wide and everything. And this is a 9/8. So, you know, the money is, the more money I'm going to bring right now is going to be from the 9/8. So I can catch some of the payments up here. So Jeremy, is there anything we were supposed to cover we didn't, or anything else you thought of?
No, I can't think of anything offhand.
I feel like this is a really good, I think this is really good for where I see the teams at. And it, we're seeing like here. So I want everybody to imagine this screen. You see how they have 2 lanes below the 7/7 and below the 3/3? They have 2. So right now, if I were to pull up some of the org charts, after Icicle version 1, it was more like, if I can click the correct area of the boxes, it was more like this. So we have more of these happening, but we do have this as well, like different areas. And so what I believe is, after this video, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of double lanes coming off of people who are building. And so I think let me ask this, Jeremy. This is actually really good. If I am 7 right here, and let's say this is the real scenario, it looks like about twice as many over here. That do you think I should ever put people here, or I only put here until it catches up equal? Or are there scenarios where you would ever put in this to help it catch, momentum even faster? Even though it
Like
looks,
the length of the line.
yeah, well, pretend like let's say it's weighted heavier too. So that's like that.
And you're the 7/7 above that branch, then
Yep.
I would still, once in a while, depending upon who's growing in that, in this case, right leg for that person, right? If there's some growth down there, you want to reward that. I wouldn't say you completely ignore it, but you might only put 20% of your effort into that particular leg to help that extra growth and to keep it in momentum. Right? You might be focused on that left leg, but yeah, I mean, at this point, you've now capped that leg with a 10/10, who should be, if they're at a 10/10, they're probably going to be able to start growing, right?
that
So
that was a
I
hallucination.
I know, but that's kind of the idea, right? Is but at the point where you find a leader in that leg, you can kind of allow some of that momentum to continue, focus on the other side, help it grow. But yeah, I wouldn't say you just stop focusing on the other leg, would you?
No, I love what you said, maybe about 20% or so. When I've been thinking about this quite a lot, I was thinking like, well, 75/25. But when you do that, you unbalance. So the 75 should be the side you need the most. And so what I was originally thinking is, so that focus fire thing, what if all 4 people put 1 person a day, and Joe has 4 people, and it would be straight down. This is supposed to represent growth under Joe, and this will represent the 4 that we focus fired in one day. So Joe, he'd been sitting there a week or relatively new. We want to grow this leg. 4 people, boom, 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 boom. We place here, do. Joe wakes up and he's like, holy crap, this works. And what does he do? All of a sudden he puts some people, he wakes up, he's like, I'm going to go start talking to people. And I think one of the things, Jeremy, you just said is like, I see Joe starting to work. Let me reward him like that, or down
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I would.
Yeah, I love it. And would you prefer, does either side matter? Do you have a favorite?
Does either side matter?
Like
So
if whether you place this one or this one to help Joe, would you do one versus the other?
personally, I would say the ones that Joe brought in personally are the ones that I would help with first. You know,
Awesome.
if you have a couple of people you want to place in that line, you might put one in each leg, or two directly in a line, right? So you want to help that person's second leg grow as well, potentially. You know, if you know that you just had three other leaders help you place into that first line, right? So
Yep.
they're going to want to help the people they placed in that first line as well. So
True. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be all on you, I think, is the key, right? I mean, we have to have people contributing, and we have to have them helping build especially at the point where they put a second leg in, right?
Yep.
But it doesn't hurt to add a person to that growth. If they bring in four people, you know, throw a fifth person in that same chain and help all four of them, right?
Yeah. Totally. I love it. Yeah, I really like that you're looking for Joe started to take action and then you want to go reward that. I really love that you're looking for that, because it's showing them like we do have your back and we see you're doing some stuff. So like let's, because together you can create so much more. So it's really cool like that. I love it. I love
Yeah, I
that,
agree.
man. So
And that's where, the kind of that socialist concept, all the six sixes in the middle. I mean, some of them would have leveled up to,
yeah,
seven at this point. So that's not a perfect picture. But the
yep.
idea is maybe they didn't. Maybe they decided they wanted to pull their money out, or they didn't ever want to go above six six or whatever.
It's good.
You don't necessarily want. This is where you don't want to do the 2x2 strategy. You're not going to put a second person there and force them to go up a level, right? I mean,
Like
it,
this.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to do that, because now you have to support that line because you created it, not they created it.
Yep.
If they create the line and you support that line that they created, that's a whole different scenario. You're helping somebody become a leader and help them grow, and rewarding that they contributed to the growth.
I love it, man. And I think this is exactly why we saw so many dead legs, with a 2x2, or even just like, let's guess that they're going to do something. We'll just give them a second person or something.
Yep.
So yeah, this is super. This is great, man. Final, we look at what we did. It started just a few little things.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's awesome.
so I think in summary, what we wanted to show in this is that outside of the icicles, here's first of all, so Jeremy, let's do some summaries on this. So we showed how to, if you need, to pull out more profits more quickly and not fall behind if you're in like a giant power lane, that you go build a second lane, and that starts generating you more profits. That if what else did we see, Jeremy?
So we also talked about, not building a perfect 2x2, and why.
Yeah,
Why the icicle is important. You focus on one or the other depending upon your scenario, right?
yeah,
That's okay to create a little chaos. It's okay to put a higher level person at the end of a line. It helps you, but it then also motivates that line. We talked about rewarding leaders, the people that are contributing to the team. We help them grow, right? And that's where the twos come in. It's not just a perfect 2x2. It's a help get momentum in that the two when it happens. think that covers it, right?
I think so. I'm looking. Oh, and just the overall balance like this. So would say mention something around that, like a summary point around it.
Yeah. So like you said, you have basically two icicle lines growing, and you kind of focus your efforts mostly in the one that is not as far advanced as the other. Right?
Yep, it's perfect.
And the
And
only thing we talked about is when you might want to have a third, start a third leg. If you start a third leg, whether it's by accident or otherwise, you got to be prepared to support that leg on your own, right? I mean, it's you can't expect the upline, although they may, help with that line. You can't expect the upline to help with the third leg. The third leg is really at the point where you're at a high enough level now, and you think you have enough people that you can bring into a third leg to do that growth on your own. That your third leg is all profit at that point. That's where you can really maximize your profits in the system, as a point where you're ready to now. You've got enough momentum, which we talked about what that means, in both legs. Now you might be able to start a third leg and really take profits out of the system. The other thing I think we didn't bring up and probably should have is the idea of when you would ever advance your X4 before your X3.
yeah, yeah.
So I hear people ask that question a lot, and they think, well, I want to do my X4 because I can catch these magic payments that come cross line or upline or downline or whatever, right? And we talked about how that's not really magic. It's always explainable. And it does happen when you're team building that you'll catch those payments. But it's and then when you're in an environment where you're doing a team build, it's a lot faster to collect on the X3 than it is on the X4. And that single collected X3 payment is enough to pay for the X4. So uh, I have mentioned to people before, the one there is special circumstances where I would recommend somebody build their X4 before their X3, because you for the most part you want to stay balanced. We don't have anything in this chart. Everything we've been talking about tonight is a balanced, or potentially the X3 is slightly higher. We didn't have any scenarios where the X4 was higher, right? Because it shouldn't be in the way that we build this system. We have a 9-8. We don't have an 8-9 at the top of that line. The only time is when you get passed up, right? So if you have a scenario where somebody gets passed and they have a potential to catch some X4 payments still, then you might go X4 first, so that your second level below, who hasn't caught up to you yet exactly, when they do their X4, you'll now catch that X4 payment and be able to now upgrade your X3. Well, you need more than one. See, that's the problem with the X4. You need to have, 2 or 3 payments, depending on the scenario of where it falls, before you finally actually collect that and can use it. So that's where it's dangerous about doing X4 first. It takes longer to then have enough money to now buy your X3. So again, the only scenario where you might do that is if you're passed up, but there's going to be money coming up the line from 2 below or more to catch up.
And Jeremy, if somebody did fall behind, like let me take this back to 7-7. Is there, so let's say they desire to catch up, and let's say they're even in the mode where things are cranking down here, and they're recycling to where some of the 7 and belows or 6 and belows are gathering here. So let's say they have enough to go 8 in one of the positions. Would there ever be a scenario when this is already an 8 where they would go 8-7 up here?
Not unless they're building their their second line.
Yep.
Because if they're going to build their second line, they're going to want to have their X3 ready to capture the payment because it's quicker. But if you were passed up and you were not going to build another line, or you were passed up and you already have 2 solid lines under you, then yeah, that's the scenario where you're going to want to do your X4 first and try to catch it that way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what it is that this 8 gets passed up. Word is not fun for that. And this 8 gets passed up. You have 2, or wait, did I just do that backwards? Oh yeah, because you have to pass them after that, right?
Right.
And
So that happened already. So now they go to 8. So now they're waiting for the ones under that level to roll up to 8 so they can catch those payments.
right here.
Yep, right there.
So we need that kind of scenario to do that.
Exactly.
Yep. And I remember early on, and I understood this stuff, and I remember Jeremy on an early webinar saying, you'll rarely need it, and if you do, just come talk to us and we'll help you sort through it. So I think it's going to come up really rare overall.
Yeah, I
So
agree. It's a very, very rare circumstance that you would ever want to do your X4 first. There's lots of these videos out there where people talk about just do your X4 and you'll catch all these magical payments. Don't buy into that. The way that we build our teams, you're going to make a lot more, uh, a quicker recovery of your money in the X3, and then use that to buy your X4.
yep, that's perfect. All right. So any last things for him, Jeremy?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really good for version 2.0. Um, help me pre-frame future expansion, and we'll do 2.1 or 3.0 or something. I mean, I think we covered the majority of every situation that I've been seeing on both sides. So we have the general science, the foundation of driving deep. So you get to focus fire at one point. You're not creating orphans. And also, let's extract maximum profit, keep the lines flying, upwards, but also not pushing people that something they're not comfortable with. I think that's really important. And I think it'll be growing over time, the need for people to be like, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world if we get past, and we can catch up. There's some work to do, or we just wait for a while and one day we'll catch up. The time frame on catching up, we talked about that. We didn't talk about that live, but what's your, we don't know is the
Yeah,
answer,
you,
right?
you don't know how long it'll take. It depends on how fast that leader below you grows and decides to go to third. So I think the teaser for 3.0 would be, what are the different scenarios when you find somebody who is a really strong leader, somewhere else in the industry that that you want to bring in. We can talk about strategies of where to place those leaders, and how to do it to help your team, but also, maximize your income. So I think that's the teaser for 3.0.
That's perfect. Yeah, I love it, man. So really appreciate you guys, loving this journey. This is what I've talked to so many people from so many backgrounds, whether they're brand new, they've never sponsored someone, or people who've opened entire countries in the industry. And the general vibe overall, I mean, and I don't, there's no negativity, like nobody complaining about stuff, that the overall, well, not that is very, not that I'm hearing or seeing anywhere. It's really, there's something special happening here. And there, I'm really good at like getting getting someone to open up to me, because I'm so open. I just throw, I don't hold anything back, and so neither do they. And I've had an enormous number of conversations, including one today. And I asked, here's what I'll share. Let me pass on wisdom from somebody in this industry that's done more than most people on the whole planet. So there's a lot of wisdom behind this. And I was like, if you were me in this situation, seeing what we have here, and you've seen all these things, across your career and built just amazing, huge things. And I was like, what would you do for the rest of this year? We're shooting this on November 12th here on 2020. And she was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Exactly. Like, Now, what I'm doing is like cranking. I mean, it's one, I thought it was 11. It's 1 a.m. and we're shooting a training video. Like I don't do that. I'm sleeping. Like Jeremy, thank you so much for all your help with this. So, um, there is something really amazing happening here, and there's a lot of buzz around the industry. There's a lot of people coming over. There's a lot of talk about it, and just I encourage you to really, even if there are some things you didn't quite get here, ask with your groups and your teams, and just start some conversation. And don't let any lack of you don't quite know it all stop you from what could be something that changes your life. I've been blessed. This is my third time in my life to find something that's just absolutely explosive. And both times previous to this, the course of my life shifted in a whole new direction. And this time, I know exactly what this looks, feels, sounds like, and I'm not missing anything. Like I'm all in. And so, and I got there from just asking questions and being curious, and also taking a leap off the cliff. And I'll grow my wings on the way down, and it's always worked, and I'm not dead yet. So I encourage you to find your version of that. You don't have to do something reckless, but do something that pushes your comfort zone. That's what I found holds most people back the most. So really appreciate you guys. That we will close out Icicle Light Team Build Strategy version 2.0, and we have lots more. These are some of the build stuff. We have lots more stuff coming. So looking forward to it, guys. We'll chat with you really soon. We'll see you on the next one.